there, and thank you for joining us here on Weather Out West on this Monday. I'm meteorologist Ashley Ruiz, and here's what we're tracking for you this morning. After days of rain up and down the west coast last week, the storms have mostly cleared, but the cool temps are sticking around. The cold is the new theme as we kick off this new work week with temperatures below average for many spots across the region. And while most areas are drying out, one place hasn't gotten the memo quite yet. And the Day 6 and is impacting the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. What that means for tracking storms during hurricane season. And remember to look out your windows tonight. Keep an eye out because you'll see the moon. It's going to be very hard to miss. Why it's going to be extra big tonight. And a new effort between tribes and farmers to protect Northwest salmon. We'll head to the Olympic Peninsula in Washington to see the challenges and solutions they are facing. And a very good morning and welcome to Weather Out West. You may be familiar with this. If not, it's an hour-long show where we tell you what's happening weather-wise across the western United States. Let's kick things off in Colorado, where a cold front brought mountain snow and rain to the Denver metro and plains. The rain isn't quite over yet, but drier skies and warmer temperatures are on the horizon. Denver's Kathy Sabin and Katie LaSalle are here with today's forecast.
Hello from Denver, Colorado. I'm 9 News Weather Impact Team Chief Meteorologist Kathy Sabin. Changes in the weather after a beautiful weekend with the fall foliage and the colors just, oh my goodness, up and down the Front Range and over the higher peaks. We've had a couple of storm systems come rolling through that have brought a little bit of light accumulating snow and a lot of wind. So many of the leaves are going to be coming down off the trees. We've got the chance for some showers today. The trough is sliding to the north and east of us, but winds will still be pretty gusty on the backside of the second front that's coming through. And here along the Front Range, we're going to have some stratus this morning, a cloud deck that may keep temperatures in the 50s this afternoon. The low, the parent low, is headed for the Midwest, and even with southwest winds along that front, there's going to be enough of an east to northeast flow. That upslope flow will bring that chance for showers to the Front Range and maybe snow today as low as 8,500 feet. Then this whole line is going to shift east, and that could impact travel outside of Dallas up to Kansas City, up to Chicago and Minneapolis as that line begins to progress through the Central Plains. This is that stratus deck, that fog that we were talking about. In the afternoon, a little bit of heating of the day, and then we're going to get that round of scattered showers moving through. After this afternoon and evening, the weather flips back to warmer and drier weather, and that trend will continue through the rest of the week. So we're going to start this morning in the 40s and warm to the mid 50s, so not a big temperature differential there. We've got a high of 56 with about a 70% chance of afternoon rain. It's drier on Tuesday, warmer on Wednesday, and then look at this, 80s possible for the end of the week right into next weekend. And so kind of a fun early October and early fall, kind of weather trend for us. And the mountain snow has been super fun to follow. Beautiful snow-capped mountain peaks in the distance.
As we brace for Colorado's super moon and trying to get a peek of it this evening, do expect mostly cloudy skies for the I-25 corridor. We've watched a front roll through. It brought us widespread rain Sunday night. If you are out in the mountains, though, mostly clear conditions. And then early tomorrow morning, we'll gradually see those clouds clear up. We picked up a decent amount of rain. Some preliminary totals coming in over southwest Denver, more than a half of an inch. Similar story from Arvada into Evergreen and Broomfield. So a big portion of the Front Range and Eastern Plains, a nice dose of precipitation. Drought monitor still dealing with extreme to severe drought over the western slope in and around the metro area. We are going to be seeing some of that rain, very helpful, especially down to the south over Highlands Ranch, helpful for those drought conditions. We start off this morning with one of the coolest days we've seen in a while, 42 degrees officially out at Denver International Airport, the coolest morning since May 27th of this year. Highs today will be well below average, 55 only for a high, 69 is the average, and we'll gradually see those temperatures climb back to near record-setting values through the course of the week, 70s and 80s on the 7-day forecast.
Meanwhile, in Arizona, the forecast is kind of the opposite. Very warm to start the week, but a little rainy later in the week and possibly the weekend. Ginger Jeffries has the latest from Phoenix.
I'm meteorologist Ginger Jeffries. We'll look at your weather out west across the great state of Arizona, where we are reeling from the last-minute loss last night for the Cardinals. But the good news is I've got some pretty amazing weather in the works for us. Daytime highs are going to be right where they should be this time of the year. We're going to see a little bit of a warming trend, and then we've got opportunity for rain. But here we go. Nothing but clear skies, a little bit of wind closer to Bullhead City. It's not a main wind event. There are no wind advisories. But temperature-wise, we're hanging out at about 93 in Yuma. I've got 90 for Safford, 76 in Show Low, 69 in Flagstaff, 80 in Sedona, and overhead 94 degrees. Quick look at the next 5 days, because pretty interesting. Unfortunately, we're getting back into the triple digits. Now, the average date that we see our final triple digit in October is about October 5th. So obviously this would be a little bit of a late season hit for us. This isn't record heat, but it's also working into the whole grand scheme of things that could bring around some rain for us, tropical rain for us by the weekend, Saturday into Sunday. So again, pretty mild, but work week warm up is in store. And then we've got the remnants from what was a hurricane starting to lift up into play. And this setup is very interesting, because just like we saw a week and a half ago when we got over 2 inches of rain over a span of 3 days, we've got that area of low pressure off the coastline that kind of acts like an engine to draw up the moisture and then again kick it out across the state. So as far as when could we start seeing some rain, at earliest I'd say Thursday into Friday. But look at this, we're really going to bump it up by Sunday. So that looks like our main rain event. For higher elevations and through the White Mountains, I mean, it's kind of all over the place, and we could start seeing some of that moisture enter into the mix by Wednesday and Thursday. I think Thursday night for high country, and again, it looks like the best opportunities will be over the weekend. So let me map it through so you can see. Now remember, I'm starting this on Wednesday evening, which again is the earliest we might start seeing some moisture pop up. It doesn't look like consistent rainfall until we get closer into Friday and Saturday, and that's when we start seeing some stronger waves of moisture. I can't take this forecast model out beyond Saturday, but look at that. You can see very dark banding. That's a nice healthy wave of moisture. And again, through Phoenix, I'd say by Saturday morning, we still just again have so much action all around us developing later into the week, into the weekend. So just hold that into your head as you take a look at some of these temperatures. Yes, I know 93 in Mesa, not bad for us this time of the year. 94 Phoenix, 91 in Scottsdale. As far as our normal range, 93. So again, right where we're supposed to be. And thankfully, even though we are warming up, we're steering clear of those triple digits. And because the nights are so nice, just get outside and enjoy it. We've got cool weather overnight as we drop down to about 71 degrees. But then as we get into tomorrow, note the numbers, we are starting to climb. I've got 96 tomorrow in Yuma, 95 for Havasu, 81 in Prescott, 83 in Payson, 98 in Tucson, and about 97 in Phoenix. Next 7 days, like I mentioned, a little bit of a work week warm up. That means highs are going to climb into the mid 70s for Flagstaff. Overnights are going to start warming as well after we enjoyed some upper to mid 30s overnight over the weekend. That was definitely a fall-like feel, but now we've got tropical moisture coming in by Friday and Saturday, looking like it's going to be rather healthy for the weekend. So look what happens for the temperatures. After we cruise in the mid 90s to upper 90s into Wednesday, we will pop those numbers back into the triple digits Thursday and Friday. Earliest for Phoenix that we could start seeing some moisture would be Friday night into Saturday morning, but our main rain event looks to be on Sunday with daytime highs falling back into the 80s.
And you heard Ginger briefly mention that the tropics may play a role in some of Phoenix's rain later in the week. While the Eastern Pacific is quite active, the Atlantic not so much. It actually flip-flopped over the last couple of weeks. Let's get a check on the tropics right now. So we have Category 1 Priscilla. That's the one that will move up toward the cooler waters of the Baja, and that's going to send all that moisture into California and the desert Southwest as well. Then there's Octave. That is a tropical storm now, and then behind that, off the coast of portions of Central America, has a high chance of development over the next 7 days. And that looks to take a pretty similar route like Priscilla. So we'll keep an eye on that one for you. The next name on the list is Raymond. Meanwhile, in the Atlantic Basin, we have this area of disturbed weather, this tropical wave that now has a high chance for development over the next week, but that's it otherwise. Speaking of hurricanes, and recent hurricanes in the Atlantic and near the United States are a very stark reminder that this government shutdown comes in the middle of hurricane season. Remember, we're at the peak. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration weather forecasters and disaster response specialists at the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, will remain open because they are deemed essential to the protection of lives and property. But with both agencies already in weakened states, the shutdown adds another layer of complexity. And the weather forecasting agency has less than 4,000 employees for the first time in decades. It actually lost more than 560 people to layoffs, early retirement incentives, and other programs aimed at shrinking the size of the federal government. And with some local NWS offices short-staffed, former NOAA administrator Richard Spinrad worries about weather events happening simultaneously across the country.
What happens if we have another hurricane outbreak and some wildfires in the West, severe drought in the Midwest? All of a sudden, you're stretching that workforce so very thin with regard to providing those services across the country and for all of these different environmental hazards.
The National Weather Service is working to hire new forecasters, but it isn't a fast process. A prolonged shutdown could slow this down even more. Once hired, it can take months to train new staff, and there won't be enough to make up for all of the experienced people the agency lost. The annual competition in Alaska that has you rooting for one chunky contender is officially over. We're going to tell you who won, plus the next stop on our tour out west, California. How the tropics may lead to rain in Southern California later in the week. We'll be back. Welcome back to Weather Out West on this Monday. This is a cute story. So the internet has named a new Fat Bear competition, or champion in the competition. 32 Chunk took home, love that name. He took home the crown after the annual week-long competition. He actually beat out rival 856 in the final polling, gaining more than 96,000 votes. Experts at Katmai National Park in Alaska say the very large male weighs a whopping 1,200 pounds and is known for his distinctive scar and broken jaw that never healed correctly. Bless his heart. That makes his win even more impressive. We love 32 Chunk. Look at him go. Yep, with the crown and everything. All right, now let's head on down to Southern California because we mentioned how the tropical systems in the Pacific will increase those rain chances in the desert. Well, San Diego's Vanessa Paz tells us how Southern California may be affected.
Happy Monday from San Diego, California. I'm CBS 8 meteorologist Vanessa Paz. Here's what it looked like earlier today at the coast. We were socked in clouds, and a lot of those clouds spilled well into the inland valleys, making way for a warmer start to your Monday. As we take a look at some of the viewer photos that were submitted overnight of the supermoon, and the harvest supermoon, it peaks tonight just before 9 o'clock. If you didn't look outside last night, you still have opportunity to catch a glimpse of it later on this evening. It will be be brightest just before 9 o'clock, and then we'll be able to continue to see it in the days ahead. All right, taking a look at your weather headlines as we get your new work week going, or actually the harvest supermoon headlines. Here's what you can expect. 30% brighter happening tonight just before 9 o'clock, and this is the first of multiple to close out our 2025 year. And you can, of course, expect higher tides. All right, taking a look now at your weather headlines as we get the new work week going. We have a pleasant and warm start to the week. However, we will have a disturbance come in midweek, and this is all due to a storm, a hurricane that's brewing right now off the coast of central Mexico, and we'll showcase its track in just a moment. I do want to let you know that we are looking forward to a chance for showers, though, starting Thursday night, and we could continue to have shower activity starting Thursday, lasting all the way through the weekend. So here is where Hurricane Priscilla is currently. This is what we were tracking earlier this morning. Winds within the system at about 85 miles per hour. Anything that's above 74 is categorized at a hurricane. And right now, Hurricane Priscilla is at a Category 1. As we fast forward, though, the future scan of this system, it will strengthen into a Category 2 in the next 48 hours. And then by the time we get to Friday, once it churns off the coast of the Baja Peninsula, it will disintegrate into a post-tropical storm, but the remnants of it will have an impact for us here in Southern California. We could see shower activity as early as Thursday morning around 8-9 o'clock, but some of the models that we're looking at, they will change. They will change in terms of the timing as well as the precipitation that we're expecting the closer we get to the second half of the week. It looks like most of the activity will be confined just to our east along the mountains and desert areas, and even more so in Imperial County as folks make their way out of California into western Arizona. We do dry out looking ahead to Saturday afternoon, so that storm is in and out of here by the time we get to the weekend, especially the second half. We're looking at much drier conditions. As we take a look at the next 7 days along the coastal areas, will be quite cool. Today all the way through Wednesday will be some of the coolest days of our 7-day outlook, but temperatures are going to rise. We have a ridge of high pressure that will be centering itself over the south, over northern Mexico, and that's going to bring in warmer air, and it's also going to pick up again some of that tropical moisture. So we're looking at not only a rise in temperatures but also an increase in relative humidity levels. As we take a look at your inland 7-day forecast, we'll top out in the high 70s through the middle of the week, rising into the 80s by the time we get to Thursday and Friday. It's a short-lived warm-up, though. By the time we get to the weekend, we are talking about 70s re-entering the picture. Meanwhile, for the mountains and desert areas, we'll be in the low 80s. Again, minimal daily changes now all the way through the middle of the week, but we'll really start to feel that warming looking ahead to Thursday and Friday. Those will be some of the warmest days. Not extreme heat by any means, especially for the desert areas. It will have the opposite effect for the county's eastern half. In terms of the warm up, things are actually going to cool down a little bit looking ahead to Thursday and Friday, and then 80s are going to re-enter the picture for those neighborhoods like Borrego Springs as well as Ocotillo Wells by the time we get to Saturday and Sunday.
It's a dry and mild start to the week in Northern California, but rain chances return later in the week as a system from the Pacific Northwest begins to move to the south. Sacramento's Monica Woods has everything you need to know in today's forecast.
I'm meteorologist Monica Woods looking at our forecast for this new work week. Regional headlines. We've got a lot of changes that we're going to be tracking, including the return to midweek fog for the coast, above average temperatures to kick off the week for the valley, cooler conditions heading our way, sunny in the foothills, and we will be tracking the potential for more snow in the Sierra. Drought monitor just wanted to recalibrate as we're getting going on this new water year. Not much has changed week to week. Where we're looking at the biggest areas of drought conditions is going to be Southern California, and that largely is because we saw most of the rain hitting Northern California over the last water year, less so for Southern California. A key indicator, though, of how our drought is doing is going to be our reservoir supplies, and they're actually looking pretty good. Our biggest reservoirs are in the northern part of the state, so when we have those bigger systems come through, despite the fact we're dry in Southern California, when they hit Northern California, that at least gives us water and storage capacity here for Shasta, Oroville, Trinity, some of our biggest reservoirs in the state. Folsom's much smaller, 92% of average, 45% capacity capacity. So our reservoirs are going to be quite a bit lower at this time of the year. We have to prepare for the upcoming wet season. San Luis is that off-stream pumped reservoir that feeds the aqueduct, and it's looking pretty good as well. Now, this one can receive a lot of water in many different areas, so this has a lot of flexibility to it. Millerton, a little bit smaller as well, only 47% full, but also over average. Our precipitation, well, it's going to be a little bit lean to kick us off for the beginning of the week, but we are monitoring some changes. Those offshore winds are going to minimize a lot of the fog along the coast, but it does start to come back on Wednesday. Kind of a bit of a hint that things are beginning to change. We're tracking a weather system well to the north of us here that will come sweeping in potentially by the end of the week. If nothing else, it's going to cool us down, but also brings us a chance of some rain showers. Most of that is going to fall along the northwest coast. Tail end of this brushing us again by Friday into Saturday, and with the colder air on Friday night into Saturday morning, we have the possibility of bringing that snow line down to about 7,000 feet, which would put it on the passes. We'll be watching that very closely. Our moisture tracker, we are dry for the beginning of the week. Once we get into our Friday forecast, you can see how that plume of moisture starts to move in along the northwest coast, kind of slide its way in through central California. So that's what we'll be tracking for those changes. Highs in the 60s today for this year. A beautiful fall day for the foothills. We're in the 80s to almost 90 degrees in some areas. Central Sierra in the 70s for today. For the Central Valley, highs are going to be warming into the 80s. Again, close to 90. Nothing extreme, is just kind of on the warmer side of things. We're in the 60s and 70s along the central coast. Inland areas, we're in the 80s, again, close to 90. Once we have those northwest winds kind of come down through the valley, those are dry and warming winds. We're in the 80s for much of the Bay Area. San Francisco today at 80 degrees. That is going to be very warm for this time of year with those offshore winds. And then again, 70s and 80s along the coast and inland areas throughout Northern California, with our capital region forecast in the 80s as well. So a warm afternoon for us here, especially kicking off the work week. We get into those cooler conditions by the end of the week with a slight chance for showers by Friday. We'll call that for the hills as well. We'll drop into the 60s after starting off the week near 80. 80 for the coast with those offshore winds. Still quite warm for our Tuesday in the upper 70s, and then we'll start to cool things down with more of that onshore flow coming our way. So our extended forecast, we start the week off on the warmer side, then we start to cool things down. By Friday, we're bringing in that slight chance for showers, and we'll see drier weather for the weekend. But again, we're expecting highs staying in the 70s.
Conserving water on the Olympic Peninsula in Washington. Next, how farmers and tribes are working to keep river levels high so salmon can keep swimming. Farmers and tribes are joining forces to protect salmon in the Northwest, and some of those farmers are even cutting back on their crops to keep more river water flowing. We'll have those details after the break. Welcome back to Weather Out West. Farmers and tribes are joining forces to protect our salmon in the Northwest. Some farmers are even cutting back on their crops to keep more river water flowing. Meteorologist Leah Pizzetti takes us to the Olympic Peninsula in Washington State to see how that works.
The sunshine in Sequim is the perfect place to farm. A grueling lifestyle, fourth-generation dairy farmer Ben Smith
Yes.
knows firsthand.
Busy's good though, right? Stay out of trouble.
His family milked 400 dairy cows at their peak. They also farm hay for the animals, corn silage, barley, and vegetable seeds.
We're farming right now about 1,000 acres.
But it's not just sun needed to farm, it's access to water also. In recent decreasing rain and mountain snow is lowering river levels where they irrigate to water their crops, having a domino effect.
We have a limited resource in water. We have, decreasing fish runs, and we have a need to produce food.
It's already a dry place to live thanks to the Olympic Mountains. While the coastal side of the mountains soaks up more than 100 inches of rain per year on average, this side's totals are around just 17 inches thanks to the rain shadow, which is essentially when the mountains suck up all the moisture coming from the Pacific. That is felt in the nearby Dungeness River, where dry weather, drought, and farmers irrigating leaves little water for spawning salmon.
The Sklallam will very frequently refer to themselves as salmon people.
Huntsy Halls, director of natural resources for the Jamestown Sklallam tribe, says the tribe had already worked to rehab this river when drought conditions worsened.
Now we have habitat, we have fish, and we're watching, well, what else is going on to limit fish? And we're seeing that in the last several seasons, we've had declared drought.
Here, there are multiple players with one shared goal, so they teamed up to keep the river flowing.
Water can be sort of this contentious thing, but here everybody knows it's important for human use, but also for the environment. So you have all these different groups that are really wanting to work together and find an answer to keep as much water in stream to help the salmon.
Chris Zernecki with the nonprofit Washington Water Trust says they've now started implementing a new system during drought years, and they saw the success this summer.
We work with the farmers, and they opt into this program where they can choose not to irrigate their land for the last month of the irrigation season, so in August and September, and instead that water stays in stream where it helps the fish that are returning from the ocean at that time.
When water levels are at their critical lowest and salmon are returning to spawn, the farmers get paid to stop irrigating and farming.
We gathered our data and said, okay, if we lose our last crop, we know what that production loss is, and said, this is what it's going to take to make us whole for that last cutting that we're basically foregoing by not irrigating.
Which can be a quarter of their season lost. But a necessary element for this setup is funding, which comes from the Department of Ecology and Amazon, who pledged $750,000 over 3 years.
You can't ask them to do something for nothing, but you have corporations that have water stewardship goals like we do with funding available.
And it's working.
That's been a great tool in our toolbox as a community to help both keep ag whole during those low flow drought years, basically being able to use those funds to go out and purchase the feed that we're not able to produce on our farm.
The ultimate goal, keeping water in the river for our precious salmon. They're seeing the multiple salmon species that swim through this water are returning and spawning, something everyone is glad to see.
They've been in trouble, the populations have been declining recently, so it's really important that we don't let these salmon species, again, this incredible symbol of the people in Washington, go away. We have to protect them and help them come back.
For Environment Northwest, I'm meteorologist Leah Pizzetti.
Stick with us here on Weather Out West as we tell you when you'll be able to see tonight's supermoon, plus the Pacific Northwest is next up on our tour out west. Thanks for sticking with us here on Weather Out West. Here's what we have for you in the back half hour. Cold is also the theme in the Pacific Northwest, with one area even waking up to some frost this morning. We resume your weather forecast in Portland, where meteorologist Rod Hill is tracking beautiful autumn weather today and to the middle of the week before they will see a return of wet conditions.
Happy to be in Portland today because it is beautiful outside. I'm Rod Hill on a Monday, and across all of Oregon, we're simply celebrating clear skies, and we have what we refer to as an east wind pattern. East winds for our area, not always, but typically produce clear skies all the way off of the coast if the east wind direction holds firm at the beach itself. And also the east winds often produce temperatures at our coast the same as our inland valleys because you shut off any cooling from the Pacific waters. So I've got really just fabulous weather to share with you. Now it's October, we've been clear, so you would expect a cool morning, and we have had one. 43, these are the unofficial lows. In some cases, they could be adjusted downward by a degree or so when the final report comes out. But 43 Vancouver, 46 Portland. I mean, nothing unusual here, just a typical cool October morning thanks to the clear skies. It was near freezing in Hood River, 34, and 39 in Tillamook. We had a whole fistful of freezing and frosty spots being reported this morning in central and eastern areas of our state. Okay, I mentioned the east wind. This is our Futurecast model. Notice the arrows taking the wind, pulling it from the east and blowing it off the beaches out in the Pacific. So again, you don't get any cooling moderation from the Pacific waters. And nothing looks extreme And one reason that is there's no temperature gradient. We're talking about 70-degree temperatures this afternoon at the coast, 70-degree temperatures in the gorge. Everybody's the same. And even this morning, temperatures have been fairly uniform. So it's not a temperature gradient, which could help increase the wind. It's simply a pressure gradient to some degree, which is producing maybe a 32-mile-per-hour wind gust coming out of the gorge in the Troutdale later today. That's just a breezy day, nothing to be alarmed about at all. And then some splintering of east wind gusts that could reach 20 or better in parts of the valley and then off of the coast. This east wind pattern continues into tomorrow morning. There are 30-mile-per-hour, 29-mile-per-hour gusts coming out of the gorge. And then by the time you get to the back half of tomorrow, Tuesday afternoon, notice the arrows. Now we are pulling cooler air off of the Pacific waters. These winds fade and we get back to a west wind. That'll set the table for a Wednesday cool down, but Wednesday still looks to be generally sunny and really nice. So we're all dry today, tomorrow, Wednesday. Thursday, day one of what could be a little run all the way through the weekend of each day having at least some manageable rainfall. So this is how much rain could fall on Thursday. Scattered less than 1/10 of an inch of rain here on the west side of our state. And then look at the heftier amounts. So in Central Oregon, there's Prineville 64 100s. How would you do that? Well, you'd have to have some convection, maybe a thunderstorm. The reason for the rain is a big upper level low that's going to park itself off of our coast. That would bring us up a south flow, and that could lead to some thunderstorm activity. And if I play this into Saturday, you've got hefty rain amounts over the blues out toward LeGrand, 9/10. Again, that's the model saying there's some convection, some potential thunderstorms. Temperatures, or not temperatures, but rain amounts here on the west side, both coast and valley, for the most part, don't get over 1/4 of an inch. We'll see if that comes true. We are all clear. Well, I mean, it's all clear. Oregon, Washington, Idaho, California, Nevada. Here are the live cameras that I was bragging about a moment ago. Our Snookwinds Casino Resort camera in Lincoln City. Gorgeous. We'll be in the 70s today. Mount Hood camera is bouncing a little bit. Can you see it? And if you look down here at some of the trees, you can see the wind. That's an east wind gusting at 30 miles per hour, 42. We have melted that little light 7,000-foot dusting that we had last week. There's our state capitol getting some pretty fall colors as well. And there's our Rose City camera showing the beautiful blue skies. So let's get you to Portland 7-day. 76 today and tomorrow. Then the cool down with the west breeze on Wednesday, 67. And there's a return to cloudiness and some rain at times Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and into the weekend. But today's going to be beautiful.
Take full advantage of that beautiful weather. And the beautiful weather is going to be the same trend up in Seattle. Rich Marriott is tracking a swing in temperatures, wildfire smoke, and autumn rain chances.
Wow, it was some weekend. It was so beautiful around western Washington. Temperatures were mostly in the mid-60s yesterday, and it felt pretty nice to be out in the sunshine. Of course, it was an exciting sports weekend around Puget Sound. As we head back to work today, though, more of the same. You see from mid-morning, just a gorgeous morning up there in Whatcom County at Bellingham, looking out across the water and looking out towards the Olympics and across Possession Sound from Everett. Nothing but blue and blue there. A little bit of smoke haze looking towards the south, and some of that's bleeding over from eastern Washington. We're going to see a little bit more of that in the next day or so as we're developing some offshore winds. It's going to be warming us up, but it's also going to be bringing some of that smoke haze west, which you'll see in the air. It doesn't look like it's going to have a significant effect on our air quality here in western Washington, but you're probably going to see that as we get later into the day today and tomorrow. But it switches back to onshore by later Tuesday, and that should all get blown away and back to blue skies once again. Temperatures this morning definitely fall out there, mid-30s to mid-40s most spots. So it's the first morning you probably did not want to leave the house without a jacket, but you want layers because it's going to end up being a very mild afternoon. In fact, we'll be into the upper 60s and low 70s today, and maybe even hit mid 70s in a few places Tuesday before a cool down midweek with just a couple of showers and even cooler as we head into the weekend. So fall is here, but we're still going to see a little bit of summer weather for a couple of days. Big ridge of high pressure sitting right here. That's going to continue to give us those offshore winds as it builds inland. That's going to help push the temperatures up into the upper 60s and low 70s today, upper 60s and low to maybe some mid 70s in the South Sound tomorrow before we drop about 10 degrees as we head towards Wednesday and the remainder of the week and start to see a slight chance of showers from systems that are just brushing by us, it looks like. Take a look at our situation for this evening for the full moon, and it's going to be full officially at 8:47, and it's going to be the harvest moon because it's the closest one to the fall equinox, and it's also going to be a supermoon that's going to be occurring. The moonrise is 6:18 of the supermoon, which means basically it's near Earth in its orbit right now, so it'll appear as much as 14% larger. So it should be a beautiful evening. Probably by about 7 o'clock, the sky will be darker because the sun doesn't set till 6:37. You can go out and take a look to the east. That should be above the Cascades for just about everybody by then, and probably see a pretty nice looking harvest moon out there. Maybe you still have something in your garden to harvest, so you can follow up on that. This is the harvest moon this month, but then next month in November, it's the beaver moon and the cold moon for December. That's not a weather forecast. It's just the name of the moon, and hopefully it won't be too cold in December. Cold enough for snow and skiing, but maybe not. It's cold enough to bring it down here. Take a look at the smoke model. You can see as we switch to offshore winds, we are going to see a little bit of that wildfire smoke work its way into western Washington. It doesn't stick around very long or very heavy, and then as we put that back into motion, it pushes on to the east. Even on the east side, by the time we hit midweek, we should see enough wind to kind of move that and mix that smoke in, so it shouldn't be too bad over there by mid to late this week, it looks like. So checking for the shorter term forecast, air quality today and tomorrow, basically good over in western Washington and moderate to maybe unhealthy for sensitive individuals, and a few places near the Cascades might drop into moderate here in western Washington. Look at our forecast high temperatures today. You can see in the mid 60s north to the low 70s south, and then tomorrow we peak out being mostly in the mid 60s up to the north, but into the low to some mid 70s down in the south side. And then as we go from Tuesday to Wednesday, we fall off the cliff temperature wise. Not that badly though. High temperatures drop back to the upper 50s and low 60s, and they're going to be staying roughly in that range for the remainder of the week. And then over the weekend, we're going to see them drop even a little bit more. But basically looking for partly sunny with a slight chance of a shower off and on Wednesday through Friday. A little bit better chance over the weekend with those cool temperatures. And then if we look at the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook, you can see we hover right around those upper 50s and low 60s as fall settles in over us.
And you heard Rich mention that the moon is going to be very hard to miss in the night sky this evening as we get a glimpse of our first supermoon of the year. That's when a full moon is closer to Earth in its orbit, making it look bigger and brighter. And since it's the full moon closest to the autumn equinox, that also makes it a harvest moon. And if you missed tonight's supermoon, as you heard Rich, it's not going to be the last ones. Next December and in November as well. Let's talk about some of the moonrise and when it will be full for some of our areas. So moonrise at 6:18 p.m. You see it's pretty similar in the northwest, but the moon will officially be full at 8:47. Pretty similar down south, except you see in Phoenix, moonrise 5:49, and that's well before sunset. And you see in Denver, moonrise about 6:15. And in case you're wondering, will you be able to see it? Well, at least along the Pacific Northwest region, maybe down in Southern California, more low clouds overnight, but then out east over the mountains, we may also see a little bit of cloud cover. Coming up after the break, we're going to get forecasts from Spokane, Washington, and Boise, Idaho. Now we're going to check in with Thomas Patrick in Spokane, Washington for today's forecast.
I'm meteorologist Thomas Patrick in Spokane, Washington. It has been sunny so far today, but these clear skies have left things cold in the morning, but luckily will be pretty warm in the afternoon. Should be a pretty big difference, especially between those coldest and warmest points of the days for this week of October, as we go from some of our coldest mornings we've had so far this fall to almost near record high temperatures later on this week. That means some areas will start the days in the 20s, other areas will finish in the 80s. That's right, a near 60-degree temperature difference across a couple days in a few spots in the inland northwest here. So it is going to be some wild swings for our nights and days to come. Today, though, very much near average temperature-wise. A high of 66 and a low of 39, only within a couple degrees of the averages for today's date, October 6th. We're getting close to our average first freeze of the season, meaning that average date that Spokane hits 32 degrees for the first time is usually October 9th. Just to our north in Deer Park, it tends to get very cold in the morning hours thanks to the temperature inversion. That date is actually September 14th, last month. And this morning, it was 26 degrees there. So no need for the frost advisories in our northern locations. You're about a month past that average first freeze date of the season, but we're in the wheelhouse now for Spokane and certainly central Washington. So should we get our temperatures even into the mid 30s or low 30s, we'll get frost advisories issued for the Columbia Basin region. Today's afternoon temperatures, as I mentioned, mid 60s, and that's right on average for the season. And even low temperatures tonight, a good handful of 30s on the map, but shouldn't be too cold, especially if you want to compare it to even this morning on this Monday, where our northern areas got down into the 20s. So average to start the week for October, but it's just going to get warmer and warmer for the rest of the week. To our satellite radar, which, first of all, radar can just take the week off here. There's no rain chances to track at all, especially around Spokane. There's hardly even any cloud cover. You gotta see the ridge starting to shape in the west coast here. Basically, it's like a camel hump. That orientation of the jet stream tends to give us very warm conditions, and that goes for really anywhere in the world. In this case, for this week, the ridge is right over the entirety of the west coast, really from the Rocky Mountains region all the way to the Pacific coast. So for Spokane, highs will be in the 70s pretty easily, with an outside chance to hit 80 degrees this week. 80 degrees this week in October would be record highs. So that is how warm we are talking about. The forecast highs even for tomorrow are back in the 70s. And I think Thursday is going to ultimately be that warmest, or dare I say, hottest day of the week. The record for Thursday is 81. You're going to see how close we are to that mark in our forecast. We could use some colder nights and really just colder days to really amp the fall colors up a bit more. Right now, we're turning to near peak. Usually in Spokane, this is also the week of our best fall colors. However, because of how warm September was, and honestly how warm this week is going to be, the fall colors are a bit delayed. I think the best fall colors will be next week. There are some trees that look very vibrant and very beautiful. Not all of them have changed colors just yet. And check out the forecast for Spokane. Again, a ton of sunshine and a ton of warmth. 70s starting tomorrow and near 80 degrees this Thursday.
Last but not least, let's head to Boise, Idaho with Hector Mendoza.
Hi there, I'm Tyson White here from KTVB in Boise, and we're taking a look at what we're expecting for low temperatures tomorrow morning, because this morning we saw temperatures that were pretty frigid around the Treasure Valley as well as the Magic Valley. We even saw a frost warning in parts of the Magic Valley this morning out there, and a freeze warning for much of eastern Idaho as well. Temperatures in the mountains will be in the 20s for overnight lows. Haley being the warm spot there, about 34. Temperatures in that frost range again for the Magic Valley. Many places out there, that frost temperature is about 36 degrees. Parts of the Treasure Valley could even be seeing that out towards Ontario, maybe even out Mountain Home as well tomorrow morning. So if you have plants that are a little sensitive around those valley areas, make sure you get those covered up this evening before you head in for the night. Make sure they kind of outlast the cool temperatures. Taking a look at our almanac for this time of year too, 70 degrees is what our average high is for this time of year. We'll be about 3 or 4, maybe even 5 degrees below that today across Treasure Valley locations. Right now, average on par right there for overnight lows. I want to point out the temperature or the precipitation amounts. We've gotten 9/10 of an inch of rain here in the Treasure Valley, and that was in the first 3 days of October. Well, our average is about 8/10 of an inch out there. We're looking to add more to that coming this weekend, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. But I want to take a look at what we saw for yesterday's daytime highs too. 67 degrees out there is what we saw. We'll be a few degrees below that today here in the Treasure Valley, that is. Mountain areas and the Magic Valley will be right on par with what they saw yesterday out there. Quickly, I want to take a look at our video, our photos that was submitted to our Idaho Weather Watchers Facebook page of some of the color, the fall color that's popping up across southern Idaho out here. This is some of the orange and yellows from the Quaking-ass trees in our areas that are just really shimmering and beautiful out there so far, really showing that fall foliage so far across the southern portion of Idaho. So really get out there and enjoy it, because it's going to be short-lived as we got some systems moving through. Let's take a look at some of our sky cams around the region. Redfish Lake, one of the more beautiful shots here. You can see some of the low-hanging clouds here that are just kind of lingering right over the lake here. Really kind of a beautiful shot, but really cool out there. 26 degrees so far today out there at Redfish Lake. Here in the Boise area, clear skies, really nice morning looking over the Boise Mountains, the Bogus Basin and Deer Point there. Nice conditions so far. Here's that foggy, that kind of ominous, mysterious, one of my favorite shots here along Highway 55 in Smiths Ferry in Valley County. Just a beautiful shot this morning. Some of the color on the trees out there are already changing too. Maine Marina looking beautiful as ever this morning. Some low clouds kind of burning off over the lake as the sun comes up and people get out and start enjoying the weather out there on the docks at Lake Payette this morning. Really nice conditions so far. Gusty winds up to about 15 miles per hour this afternoon are possible across the Treasure Valley. This morning though, and so in the evening hours, that could make things feel just a little bit cooler sometimes. Day planner for today for the Treasure Valley up to about 65 degrees. Plenty of sunshine to go around. Same thing goes for the Magic Valley. Lots of sunshine to be seen here as well. Temperatures up in the low 60s for many of these areas here as well. Your 7-day forecast, or excuse me, we'll take a look at our Magic Valley forecast, that is. 59 degrees for Jerome, up in the 60s there for Shoshone and Burley. 56 that is for Sun Valley, 60 for Stanley here. Long Valley looking pretty decent here too, mid-50s for many locations here. Lots of sunshine. Brigands being the warm spot there as well. Western edge of the Treasure Valley, 66 degrees in Ontario. There'll be the warm spot, same with Weiser, 65 out in Nampa. 65 here for the City of Trees too this afternoon, up to about 63 for Idaho City. 7-day forecast showing that warming trend going through Monday into Thursday. Temperatures could reach almost 80 degrees in some places. Then we see a little bit of a drop on Friday with the system pushing in. And then Saturday into Sunday, we see the big changes coming in there. That's when we start seeing cooler temperatures. We see better chances of showers. Sunday, look at that temperature difference between Thursday and Sunday. Almost 20-degree difference there. And a little bit over 20-degree difference there, I should say. And you could see the chance of some scattered snow showers on some mountaintops above 5,000 feet in some of those areas here across southern Idaho.
Sorry about that, Tyson. Thank you so much for the forecast. And when we come back, make sure you stick around because you'll see this amazing video of a volcano in Hawaii that hurled lava hundreds of feet into the sky. Take a look at this. Stunning video captures the latest eruption from Hawaii's Kilauea volcano. It unleashed spectacular lava fountains that towered an astonishing 1,300 feet into the air. And to put it into perspective, that's as high as New York's Empire State Building. Super, super cool. That's going to do it for us here on Weather Out West today. I'm meteorologist Ashley Ruiz, and we thank you so much for being with us. We'll see you tomorrow.